be with us this morning on the topic, Developing Talent as Elevated to Number One. John Lankford.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. I'd like to thank you for being here this morning. I see a number of new faces for the first time, so I want to thank you for attending an event. Each speaker, we've had the CEO for Myers, we've had the founder of, was it 2 Men in a Truck a few months back. The group that meets like this in Grand Rapids and in Kalamazoo sometimes gets audiences of close to 200. So I would encourage you to consider becoming more active and joining. It's a great place to fellowship and meet other Christians, as well as a number of people that come that quite honestly may not be Christians, and they're welcome as well. But one of the things you'll hear from all of us speakers is you'll hear something relative to their testimony or their relationship with God. And so that's always a part of our event at some point, and so it depends on the speaker how they choose to talk about their faith and their relationship. So this morning, I'm going to talk to you. Jeffrey mentioned a new number one. This morning, I'd like to make sure that you get the link to performance. This morning, I'd like to talk to you about productivity in your business, size doesn't matter, quality, retention of key talent, profitability, and the ability to execute. So recently, you have a handout at your table that looks like this, and it has the word tsunami on it. I'm not going to ask you if you know how to spell tsunami. And it's always dangerous as a speaker to reference a handout because some people may start reading. What I thought I'd give you is the background behind this morning's workshop and the crisis that's occurring. I lived in Southwest Florida for about 5 years, and when they would announce that there is a storm brewing out in the Gulf, the entire Southwest Florida community would begin to react and prepare because it's coming. This morning, I want you to recognize that there's a storm coming. In fact, it's already starting to hit land. And I'll explain that more in just a moment. This is the process that I use for working with all the clients that I've ever worked with. And today we're going to focus on the word talent, and I want to tell you why. So, for the last 50 years, by show of hands, how many have heard the comment that the number one reason for turnover in America is people leave their boss, they don't leave companies? How many have heard something like that? Raise your hand if you have, all right? How many? So that's been true for the last 50 years. My boss is ineffective, I don't like my boss, we don't get along well together, whatever the phraseology might be, the number one reason for turnover in America has been the relationship with your manager. Until February. The new Gallup research has just come out, and the new number one reason for turnover in America today and in the foreseeable future is lack of training, development, and career growth possibilities for me. Now you might ask, well, what happened over recently that's caused that? One of the large influences has been the number of millennials coming into the workplace. And there are going to be more. By the year 2020, which when I said this a couple years ago, when I was speaking at the Broad School of Management at Michigan State, I was talking about how to recruit and retain millennials. Well, they're here. They're landing on shore. They're in your businesses. And so now the new number one is this. The new number two is paying benefits. Now your relationship and the quality of leadership in your company is number three, and number four is company culture. That's a big shift. And how many of you right now know other business people or yourself that have trouble finding really good quality talent? Quite a few? Yes. So here's the insight. I spoke at the Grand Rapids event last year. I opened the conference by saying, everybody in Michigan who wants to work is working. And if they're not, you probably don't want them anyway. Now, to say everybody is a little bit of a generic statement, but most of the quality people are working. So it begs the question, if you're going to grow your business, like Jeffrey's been strategically growing Structure Tech, if you're going to grow your business, you're going to need quality talent. So the question becomes, where do you find them? And if you do find them, how do you keep them? And so today I want to talk to you about how to keep them and how to recruit them differently. Because when you're talking to candidates today, unless they have hair the color of mine, they're going to be asking you questions about, so tell me a little bit about career paths in your organization. Tell me about the leadership curriculum you have to develop leaders. Tell me about the training and development opportunities I'm going to get as a frontline associate. They have choices today. So let's make the analogy of referencing real estate. Is this a buyer's market here in southeastern Michigan right now for selling homes, or a seller's market? Seller's market, right? Because prices are up, right? It's a seller's market. It's an employee market right now. People can leave your company and be employed tomorrow for an extra 10 or 20% raise and or signing bonuses. The rules of the game of business have changed, and you don't get a vote. But what you do get is a chance to do something about it if you just knew what to do. And so today I'm going to take you inside of some of the great organizations that I've been a part of, some of the companies that I've helped grow. I'm going to share with you how to take steps to avoid this becoming a crisis in your business. "2017 State of the American Workplace. Your employees now, 51% of them are actively, doesn't mean if somebody calls they won't answer the question, because that's why the executive search firm industry is booming. Half of your employees are actively looking for better possibilities, a more healthy culture, a place with less stress, a place where I don't have to work 6-7 days a week and miss my kids' soccer games and so on. That culture item that made the top 4 I just showed with you. So let's go over some proof. So John, prove it. So let's just pretend you don't believe me yet. So here are some dynamics related to productivity, quality, the comment I opened with. Because even though I'm talking to you about talent, I want to keep making the reference to performance of your organization. So these are pretty factual numbers. Today, your younger workforce and your top performers, regardless of age, are not going to settle anymore. They're not as patient anymore. When I first started at Ford Motor Company a long time ago, my dad, shortly after getting out of college, my dad thought I was set for life. I'd work there 30 years, retire, have 2.3 kids after I got married. It was all perfect. In his mind, he knew exactly how it was going to play out. Unfortunately, neither he nor I realized that I'm kind of wired to be an entrepreneur. And so I only lasted 18 years. It took me 18 years to figure it out, and then a few years at Oakwood Healthcare. But for the last 14 years, I've been an entrepreneur and working with other private businesses like yours. They're not going to settle. You may think you're doing a good job of retaining them. It's only because some of them haven't found yet a better opportunity. So let me take you inside of some of those companies in just a moment. So some of the statistics, some of the proof was, in that recent survey, 3 in 10 employees strongly agree with someone at work encourages my development. If in your company that were true, and if you could move it to 6 in 10, you would have a 6% improvement in engaged customers. I'm kind of thinking that's important to your bottom line. And 11% improvement in productivity. These are business facts that impact your bottom line. So even though I'm going to talk to you about how to recruit and retain talent because of the new research, I want you to understand how it impacts your bottom line. There's a business reason we're having this conversation today. Another statistic. Best practice organizations, the best of the best, whoever's number one in your industry, regardless of what you do, 4.3 times better than their competitors. More statistics about how the research impacts your bottom line. So I struggled with how to give you, what does turnover cost you? This entire folder is every research I could gather for the last 10 years about what does turnover cost your company. And depending on the skill level and the entry level, and whether it's an executive, whether it's your VP of sales, whether it's your accounting director, whether it's your frontline associate, whether it's your executive assistant. It ranges from about 20 to 25% of their annual salary per employee to 210%. So if you have a $100,000 employee, and that's because that's not a 20%er, that person leaves your organization, the research will prove it's going to cost you somewhere in between 75 to 150% of their annual salary for one person to leave. So if you'd like to know more about some of the research, I'd be happy to send it to you. So a study from a couple years ago, 1 in 10. So if you have an organization with 10 managers, according to the study, now here's the challenge you got to listen through. John, that's not true about my company. John, come on. That's not true at Structure Tech. That's not true at my organization. 1 in 10 leaders have the high talent to effectively retain and manage people. So now let me take you inside of the organization. I told you I would share with you the solutions. I've given you on your table a piece of paper with a blank, and it looks like this. I'm going to fill in the blanks for you, so feel free to write. So you can leave here with all 15 of the solutions. So I'm going to share with you what are the best entrepreneurs and mid-sized corporations do to affect this issue. Except here's the issue. There aren't very many companies in southeastern Michigan doing what I'm about to share with you. Some are doing a little. Like when I say developing talent, Dave, how many times have you heard this? People will say, oh, we do training. Well, training's one way to develop talent. I have 27 ways that I've seen and that the great companies are developing talent. Training is one. And most of you in this room don't even have an effective training curriculum and don't have an effective training budget. But remember, training is only one option. So let me walk you through this. So if you want to know, well, how should my company be doing? How much of a budget should I have, John? Well, here's what average companies do according to the largest study of its kind last year across America, all industries, all sizes of companies. On balance, about $1,200 or $1,300 per employee. So if you have 20 employees, do the math. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, well, I only have 20 employees, John, this really doesn't apply to me. Yes, it does. Based on my experiences across America in all kinds of industries, yes, it does. You may spend the money differently, but it does apply to you. I'm leaving here, and I have a 10:30 meeting at the CAM organization office on Woodward in I believe it's West Bloomfield. CAM is the Construction Association of Michigan. They have 2,200 members. A recent study of focus groups across Michigan, all industries related to the construction industry, engineers, architects, accountants, people that do construction work, anybody related to the industry, people are no longer bidding on certain jobs because they don't have enough talent to do the work. And they can't find more good talent. And so the Construction Association of Michigan approached me and said, John, could you help us create a leadership development program that we could offer to our entire organization? This is an organization that represents its customers, in this case its members, who recognize they have a need. Because some of the mid-sized companies, and even some of the larger ones, don't have a formal process in place to develop leaders. And so you'll hear more about that in the next couple months as they begin to announce it. So the first something is, who's responsible for making leadership development a priority? The first solution is, you need to make it a priority. Number two, now let me back up. When I say a priority, I won't, but if I were to ask you right now, what are the top 3 business priorities that any member of your executive team could tell me? The 3 most important priorities for your business, rarely does anyone say developing talent. So I'm asking you to rethink how you're going to run your business for the next 5 to 10 years. And if it were as important as profitability, as important as customer retention, what would look differently in your business plan for the next 24 to 36 months? And quite honestly, what should you do in the next 90 days to begin to get on that path, if it were a real business priority. Are you willing to develop a budget? I just shared with you some numbers. Now, is anybody in the room a really great cook? I am not, by the way. Anybody? I need one. Is there somebody who thinks they're a pretty good cook? Somebody. All right, I'm going to pick on you just because you're looking at me and smiling. So I'm going to pretend you're a great cook just because you were smiling. So, okay. So if you were a great cook, thank you for volunteering. Let's compare what her lasagna is going to look like, because I am on the other end of the scale. On a 1 to 10, if she's a 9.5, I'm a 1.5. Now, can you and I make something that kind of looks like lasagna? Maybe. Yeah, probably. He said maybe. I'll give us the benefit of the doubt and say maybe. So can we gather, does it need noodles and does it need sauce and mushrooms and depending on what you want in your lasagna? It'll come out kind of sort of looking like lasagna because it's not our strength, and quite honestly, I've never made lasagna in my life. I know where to go buy it. And I'm even smarter than that. I married a lady who's a brilliant cook. But if we were to do it, but it's not our strength and we've never done it before, what are the chances you're going to do it well? And I'm going to share with you some things this morning that you've never done before. So what are the chances you're going to do it well if you've never done it before? Cooking is just an analogy. If you've never done it before, are you willing to risk your company's future on winging it, as opposed to, in some way, shape, or form, benchmark or get some best practice help? Number 3, put some sort of structure in your place. The reason I told you the CAM story is they're going to offer it to all businesses in southeastern Michigan. They're going to open up their membership because they realize there are some CEOs in southeastern Michigan that have 20, 30, 40 employees, and they just can't create some sort of model like this. But if you have 100 employees, you could. If you have 500 employees, you certainly should. Some sort of structure. Now, when I say some sort, this is just a picture of what structure could look like. This says Introduction to Management. You're offering some sort of training. My daughter's been at Toyota for 23 months. She graduated from Michigan State University in their supply chain school. 6 months before graduating, Toyota made her an offer she couldn't refuse. She works in Ann Arbor. I live in Plymouth. She lives at home. Great first job. She's been there 23 months. She's already been promoted twice, got 2 raises, has applied for 3 other jobs, and is wondering why she can't get promoted faster. She's been there 23 months. Now, when I went to Ford, do you think after 23 months I was challenging why I haven't been promoted the second time? Now, they have her in a leadership curriculum that they bought from Ken Blanchard. Remember the situational leadership training from years ago? They're taking frontline associates. It's just an example. You could be doing the same thing. And they're starting to prepare and develop them for the next position that they want them to be successful in. And I'll explain that more in just a couple moments. But you can do that in your company if you had a strategic plan for developing talent. The most underserved leadership audience in America. People are promoted from a frontline associate who are great individual contributors, and you stayed here and you've been loyal and you're hardworking and you'll work Friday nights and Saturdays if I ask you to, and if you stay long enough, we'll promote you into management with almost no preparation. Now we make you a manager. Now that has 2 implications. One, you just put somebody who's unskilled into a new position, and you just took one of your top performers and took them out of the position. One of the challenges of people that move into a leadership position because they don't understand the passage that you have to go through is they don't understand how to motivate people. They don't understand how to hold people accountable because the people they were working with last week, now they have to supervise them most of the times. They don't understand accountability. They don't understand planning. They don't understand scheduling. They've really never developed them to be successful in the job they're about to put them in. So they put them in the job, and then they fire them or move them or just keep their fingers crossed they're going to be successful. When you move from an individual contributor into some sort of management position. These are examples, and the size of your company doesn't matter. You could have 20 employees. You could have a team leader that you think could be a manager someday and run your business. Don't develop him just for his leadership position now. Be thinking about the next position as you begin to get it strategically organized. Number 5, create some sort of a process for career planning in your organization. People that you interview today are going to be more overtly forward with, how do people get promoted? What's my career going to look? If I accept this position, people are going to start saying, Jeffrey, what's my career look like in your company? And the answer isn't the old-fashioned stay in the position for 7 to 10 years, work your way up the ladder, and someday you might be a department head. That interview will end real shortly as they get up and leave. And careers in organizations today, the reason these arrows go all over the place is in the old days, career ladders went up, the corporate ladder went up positions regardless of the size of the company. Today, people move laterally, not necessarily more money, to go get different experiences. Now, whether you agree with this process or not, what I'm trying to get you to understand is that you need to have an answer to the question, what's my career going to look like in your company? And people doing the interviewing and your management team and your CEO of the company need to have an opinion about careers in your company. I'm warning you, this is what people are going to be talking about or leaving. When they are, the 51% that are working for you now looking for a job, they're looking for places where they're going to have a more defined career, as opposed to work here and wait for Fred to retire. And then I got a shot at his job. You need to figure out how what is your organization's opinion about career planning? Job descriptions. How many of you know what a job description is? Just quickly, show of hands. All of us do. In most organizations, I'm just being honest with you, it's kind of a joke. That's God supporting me in the background, by the way. You'll hear his voice from time to time. It's all designed. It's part of the plan. So when you really understand what is a job description supposed to do, it's supposed to define performance in this role. It's supposed to define the skills and expectations. It's supposed to define what competencies am I going to need in this position? What are the performance standards in this position? You would be embarrassed to see the garbage that I see when I go into organizations and say, show me job descriptions for people. Or somebody will say, well, Hannah's not doing a good job. Sorry, it's what happens when I know your name. I pick on you. Kevin, you're next. And somebody will be complaining. The CEO will be complaining about Hannah's performance. She wouldn't, because she's a marvelous lady. I'm going to talk to you about her in a minute. But when I say what is the performance standard, does she have the skills? What are the skills required to be? What would a rock star even look like? You say you're not happy with her performance. What are you not happy with? So when I go in and start digging and peeking under the rocks and looking, all of a sudden it's not very clear. And so it begs the question, then how can you be unhappy with somebody if you haven't set good expectations? A job description helps you do that. It's a small piece of the formula. There are 15 ingredients to our lasagna recipe. You can leave out 1 or 2 of them and make great progress. But if you want to know what are the best organizations, what are the best entrepreneurs in America doing, it's the entire blueprint, it's the entire recipe of the 15 solutions. You can leave out mushrooms and our lasagna is going to taste pretty good. But don't leave out the noodles. Don't leave out the sauce. Some of these are kind of fundamental to good business. And some of you are not doing fundamentals as well as you should. Number 7. Now remember, let's go back to why am I talking about this. The biggest, largest, most valid study in the world has just announced the number one reason people are going to leave your company in droves in the weeks and months and years ahead is lack of training, development, and career options in your company. It's going to get worse. The storm isn't going to be close, it's going to hit shore. It's coming to your company. I don't care if you have a 10-person landscape company or a 40-person company or a 500-person company. This is about to change the landscape of employment in America. if I won't ask the question because I already know the answer and I don't want to embarrass you, I'll be willing to bet there's not two people in this room who know how to sit down with a person and have one of your direct reports and have a career planning, talent development conversation that would identify their development needs. Oh, by the way, bring that job description. What are the one or two areas that we can really help you, Sergio, grow and perform and take your performance and development to a new level? Because we had a conversation about developing you. And what does development mean, and what resources and tools, and how many different ways can I do that? Because I really want to help you continue to grow, because you really enjoy growing. So train your management team on how to have that conversation. My daughter's working on her MBA right now, and I know lots of people with doctorate degrees and lots of advanced degrees, and from the best schools in the country. I've worked with the University of Michigan's Business School. I've worked with the Center for Creative Leadership. I've been inside the Disney Institute. Managers aren't trained on how to develop talent. It's a missing skill. Yet now it becomes critical. So one of the ingredients, your managers have to understand how to develop talent. And they don't. If you don't, it's going to cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, depending on the size of your company. There's an emotional reason you need to take this list of ingredients and ask yourself, what should I start doing next week? I study great leaders around America. I've had the privilege at the Executive Education Center at Ford Motor Company for 18 years, and at Comcast and at the St. John Health System to bring in some of the top speakers in the world, up to and including Jack Welch. And if you study Jack's original philosophy, his name was being mentioned at our table this morning, when you study how Jack thinks about what people should be held accountable for, he lists three things. One of them is results, no surprise. One of them is living the values of the company. And guess what number 3 is? Look at the screen. People should be held accountable for development. If you want to work in our company, growing and continuing to grow and learning new computer skills and learning new communication skills, growing is not optional if you want to work at GE in the 20-year run that he had. If you want to do something interesting, go look at the stock price from when he took over the company to when he left. And you would have liked to have invested $1,000, trust me, over that 20-year span. So ever since then, I've always used my model of developing talent as part of the accountability system we put into organizations. I just won't want people in my company who aren't willing to grow and learn new things. How to collaborate, how to be a better team member, personal accountability, communication, simple skills. It's just that we haven't even taught simple skills to people. And so the point here is learning and growing and developing should not be optional. How many of you like to read? I know there's a lot of new faces in the room. Read the book, The Breakthrough Company. You've heard me mention this 5 times. The Breakthrough Company by Keith McFarland. It's gray and burgundy. It looks like Ohio State colors, but I recommend it anyway. The reason I'm mentioning it to you, Keith McFarland went out and did a nationwide study over 7 years of companies your size. We've all heard of the Good to Great research by Jim Collins and all of that research. What are the great companies doing? The best of the best. Keith McFarland did the same study of companies your size and your size. And so in that book are some best practices. What did the 7 companies who outperformed their competition, improve profitability 300 times better than what did they do that other mid-sized companies aren't doing? And I'll share with you 1 or 2 of the findings in that book. Find some way to create a basic, fundamental, core program for developing your leaders. Don't do miscellaneous training things. I'm talking about an organized approach. So if I said to you, I'll use your example, Jeffrey, this morning. If I were putting a curriculum together for management, how many of you know managers and or yourself who could teach a class on time management? Okay, 2 of us. I'm actually certified by the Stephen Covey organization. So there's 2 of us that could do that. How many managers and people do you know that's not a strength of theirs? Managing their time, making priorities, adjusting to changes throughout the day. Time management is just not their strength. Well, if that's true for your leadership or team leaders on your crew, whatever, what if that became part of the curriculum if that's a need? See, it starts with, what do you need them to do really well that they're not doing as well today? And would some sort of training or development help them perform better? The May-June issue. Could it be any more hot off the press? This is a picture of the front cover. Look at the article. What do great CEOs, it didn't say of big corporations, what do great CEOs what do great CEOs do differently? What behavior sets them apart? Here are the 4. The best of the best do 4 specific behaviors better than everyone else. They're decisive even if they don't have all the information. They know how and when to make decisions and move on. They know how to engage other people around them in their company. A place where people are engaged. Jeffrey's been working hard on that since I met him. And still not done. Would you say that's true? Still not done. They adapt quickly. How many times in your day does new stuff come at you that's not in the playbook? John, they didn't tell me this when I went to school to become a business owner. If they'd have known, how many do you know how to adapt? Most people don't do it very well. Dave knows hundreds of CEOs. Dave is one of the chairs for the Vistage organization. It's another audience and group of CEOs that come together and learn and share and communicate and do some peer coaching. How well do you think they adapt to change? Dave, if you were to guess. A strength or not so much?
Maybe not.
Not so much. That was polite. Thank you. Dave and I are good friends. Folks, there's just stuff coming at you every day that's not in the playbook. Your biggest customer calls. They deliver every day results. Now, that's kind of a simple formula. They make decisions when they need to, quickly, with enough information. How many times do you have all the information? Not very often. So you have to learn, how do I make decisions? What are the risks? What are the pros and cons? And we're going to make a decision. Trust me, you have people in your management ranks that's not a strength of their skill set. I meet a lot of CEOs, that's not a strength. They've created an organization and a culture. I don't care if you have 10 employees or 1,000, where people are engaged, highly engaged, where people adapt quickly, easily, without a lot of resistance, and they deliver reliably. Deliver results reliably. So how do you compare? How many of you have seen the TV show The Prophet? Quite a few? You need to watch it. It's a good TV show. I don't watch all that much TV. You learn a lot about business. In that article, on page 3, 80% of the executives, according to their study from at the time the world's largest executive search firm, deliberately develop those 4 skills I just told you. The best CEOs deliberately develop those 4 behavioral skills. Are you? Folks, the landscape has changed and you don't get a vote. Now the question is, when you know what to do, what are you going to do when you walk out the door today? Because one option is just keep doing what you're doing and expecting different results. And Paul, we know how that works, right? They deliberately develop those things. Sorry for touching that. No. They make decisions faster and with greater conviction. And those people who do are 12 times more likely to be high performing. That's not a small shift. Adapting. the CEOs who excel, who could teach the course on it, are 6.7 times more likely to succeed. This is in this month's issue of Harvard Business Review. Go buy it. Or send me an email, because I already bought the article, plus I subscribe to the magazine, I can email it to you. Or maybe you just should subscribe to it and start reading more about leadership. Number 10, as part of the formula, you need to ask yourself, do I have the right people in leadership positions? And if I'm going to develop them, how would I know what to develop them on? Well, conduct some sort of assessment so you find out. Because the blue areas represent really solid performance. So this says sociability. This says decisiveness. This says verbal reasoning. Maybe communication is not a strength of some members of your leadership team, and that ought to be part of the training that you offer. But don't just go buy some training so you can check the box, because it won't make a difference. You've got to tie development to performance, and that's more than just training. Now, I'm here talking to you today about why people are going to be leaving your company. Double, 2, 3, 4 times as many as last year. Next year is going to be much worse than this year, I promise you. So far in southeastern Michigan, in the last 12 months, I only know of one company that's not true. One that I know of. I'm sure there might be others, but I'm a pretty connected person. I know of one company that that's not happening to right now. And it's a $200 million company with 125 employees, and they've lost one person in the last 2 years. If you did some sort of organizational assessment, it would help you identify some of the training needs of your company based on the data. See, most of you are running your business without the right data. So if we did some sort of brief assessment, I could tell you or recommend, here are the 4 most important skills that you need to be starting some training and development and mentoring in your company. This isn't just send somebody to a course. That will not work. The probability of improvement is about 7% out of 100. Almost a waste of time. So John, if I were to design a training curriculum for all my employees, now some of you may say, well, John, I'm not big enough to have training for all my employees. I can't shut my company down. Well, then maybe you should talk to me about what the Construction Association of Michigan is doing and send 1 or 2 of your employees at a time to the training they're going to offer. It won't be quite as targeted, but for smaller companies, it's a good alternative. But ask yourself in your company, who here has somewhere between 25 and 75 employees? Anybody? Hannah? Yes, sir? First name? Yeah. Ken. So Ken, can I pick on you this time? Sure. Say yes, I'm gonna. So in Ken's company of, let's just pick a round number and say 50 employees, if we went in and looked at an assessment to find out what training needs do they have in their company to improve the performance of the business, I wonder if there's some computer skills that could be improved. I wonder if we have communication as strong as it needs to be in all areas of the business. I wonder if people live and walk the values of the business. Have we ever really had any kind of workshop to help people even understand what does that poster on the wall mean? Interviewing. Interviewing's changing. The way you conduct interviews today is not like you were conducting interviews 2 or 3 years ago. Are they skilled at that? How well do people solve problems without going to Jeffrey? Literally, without calling the CEO. How well can they solve problems? Personal accountability. When we make a mistake, how well does my organization recover from it for the customer when we make a mistake? Do you have any kind of service recovery issue? Anybody ever been to a restaurant and something goes wrong and they offer to bring you dessert for free or some sort of something? I hit a sore spot, I can hear the groaning. That's service recovery in action. How well do people solve conflicts, or do they have to bring you in? I mean, does every answer have to go to the CEO? Conflict resolution, performance improvement plans, customer service? By show of hands, how many people can name 2 companies in southeastern Michigan, 2, that provide extraordinary service? You would rave about the service experience you get there as a customer. Who can name 2? Look around the room, hands are up real high. 2 guys. Well, somebody almost raised their hand. 2.5. See, I believe service in southeastern Michigan, on balance, is about average. You kind of get what you pay for most of the time. What if your organization began to differentiate itself by providing extraordinary service on everything? Everything. Do your phones get answered by a real-life human being in less than 20 minutes? Or do people wear out skin on their fingers hitting prompts? When somebody answers the phone, how well do people get serviced? When you make a mistake or somebody has a question, how well do people get back? I mean, I can go on and on about what extraordinary service looks like. But what if your company's growth model was built on creating an extraordinary customer service model? Do you think we might have some training to do, as an example? Maybe. Number 13, if people leave, and they're going to, when people leave, not if, you need to have a process in place for conducting exit interviews. You need to have a process in place. You keep hearing me reference the word process. You need to have a process in place for how people get promoted. And it's not because they outlasted everybody else. That is not the criteria for promoting people. And number 15, make sure that you pay attention to the health of your culture. It was number 4 on that list from them. Now, I should have filled in all the blanks for you on this. When I've talked about development today, it's the entire chapter 6 in my book that Jeffrey mentioned. I'll give away 4 or 5 of these in just a moment. It's chapter 6. In addition to, I'd love for you to have a book, or I'd love for your entire management team to have a book, here are some examples. Purposeful training. You might start a book club. If you want to help somebody grow, you want Hannah to grow, maybe part of her development is her public speaking skills. I'm making this up. Ask her to get certified to teach a class. If you want to learn content at a whole new level, teach it to others. A mentoring program. Those are just 5 examples out of the 27 examples that I'm going to give you right now. So I'm going to give you the essence of chapter 6. What I want you to take away from this morning's conversation, in addition to the 15 ingredients, the blueprint, is a sense of urgency to act, to practice one of those decisiveness competencies in that Harvard Business Review article, because you're going to get hit. The question isn't, is the storm going to reach your house? It's going to. You can sit there right now and arrogantly and think it's not. I promise you it is. Pictures of tsunami, just to make the point. So get out your phone and send me a text right now to this number. I'll answer 2 questions. I think I have time for 2 questions. Send me a text to this number, and I will send you right now, you'll have it before you get up, all 27 development ideas in chapter 6. There's 27 of them. It will probably come to you and look something like that, but there's 27 of them. So if you're thinking about how do I develop talent in this in my company, I'm a small company, John, how do I do that? I'll give you 27 options to consider. Now, put in the text only your first name, a blank, your last name, a blank, or space, whatever you choose, that's a space, and then your email address, and it will come to you right now. While you're doing that, let me ask you, does anybody have a question about anything I've said? Let me check my time real quick, Jeffrey. Okay. I'm actually a little ahead of usual. Does anybody have a quick question about anything while you're sending me a text? Remember, this is a space. First name, space, last name, space, email. I have time for 2 quick questions while you're doing that. Everybody's head is down sending a text. Even those who forgot their socks. Yes, sir. Question. Chuck.
Where in the organizations can you implement this other than only at the top? How do you look at various segments in order to begin to do things?
In order to begin.
Or to begin?
Yep. I would look for an opportunity. So if I were king for a day, and Chuck, you called me and said, John, I got 25 employees, where do I start? John, I got 5 managers and 20 employees, where do I start? I would first start with a conversation about performance for your 5 managers and the performance of your 20 frontline associates, and how's the business doing? If you tell me just a little bit of data about how's the business doing, and I start having a conversation with you about why isn't it doing better, we will begin to identify some training needs, Chuck, for frontline associates, as well as for managers. Because I believe strongly, in every company I've been in for the last 30 plus years, it always comes back to some form of leadership. What the company does or doesn't do. If you look to buy a company tomorrow, I can promise you one of the things you're going to look at is who's going to run the company and what does the quality of the leadership look like. And if you do buy the company, what's your new leadership going to look like now that you bought the company? So my title is rather edgy. The answer is leadership. You just tell me the question. Any question you can pose to me right now, part of the answer is your leadership or the leadership of your company. Did that answer your question, Chuck?
Yep, thank you.
So with that, let me just share a little bit that's a testimony on my part. I'm always looking for ways to be a better Christian, to be a better role model, to be a better father, a better husband, a better servant. And sometimes I haven't done as good a job as I need to, and I recognize that, but I'm always looking to improve. And so for today's event, I invited some people that I've never invited before. And I told them it was a Christian event, and I'm going to be the speaker, and some of you showed up. Thank you. What I did this time was something I really believe in, that all great leaders should do, times 50 of us in the room this morning, 50 executives, is be a better role model, walk the talk, because I think that's what great leaders do. That's what great servants of God do. And so I sent an invitation to somebody. And there's a person in this room, I won't mention their name, who sent me back a reply. So I sent an email to a lot of people. And somebody sent me back a reply that almost sounded like tears because of the impact that person received. This is my interpretation of their email. That I would have the courage to invite them to something like this. Now that struck me. Nobody's ever sent me an email like that. And I've since told that. I told it on our board call last week. It struck me that an email could have an impact on somebody's life because I invited them to a Christian conversation about leadership. And so now I'm talking to myself about, well, what else could I be doing to serve God, to be a better role model, to expose more people to what being a believer really means. And so each CEO, each executive that speaks at our quarterly events, I would encourage you to come to more of these. The one in Grand Rapids is fabulous as well. I think there's a real opportunity for all of us, and I'll certainly only speak for myself, to be a better role model, to not be afraid to tell people that you believe in God, to not be afraid to invite people to there's a couple people I invited, and they said, John, I saw the word Christian on there. That's not for me. I literally had somebody say that to me. I said, that's okay. I said, could I tell you why I invited you anyway? So I just kind of took the door, and he cracked it open, and so I just put my big size 14 in the door. And so we had a conversation for a couple minutes, and in that conversation, I didn't move the needle, but I planted a seed. And I'll come back to that seed because that's kind of my style. And so I would ask all of you, as you think about your business, your life, your relationship with God, to look for opportunities to be a better role model, to look for opportunities to invite some people to this event that may not be Christians. And that's actually an idea. I'd love it if half this audience were not yet Christians. So with that, I want to say thank you for being here today. I am going to give away a couple books as soon as I find the thing here. And I'll stick around if you have some questions. So let me give away 4 quick books in the next 20 seconds. Hannah, would you mind reading names for me? So that person's name is?
Oh, I think I cheated here.
Who is it?
My husband.
Oh, okay. Now, see, I don't have my glasses on, so it may not even be her husband, right? All right, there you go. All right, so you won. How about pick one? And please don't pick her. What's it say? Tell me.
Chuck Truza.
Chuck Truza. All right, Chuck. Here you go, Chuck. Chuck, would you mind picking the name?
Sure enough, some of the early risers there, arrivers.
At the bottom. And that name says?
It's Brent Rankin.
Brent. All right, thank you. Just drop it back in there. Brent, where are you? I'm going to turn around. Brent. So I'll stick around. I have a couple extra books. If you just can't leave here without one, come see me. I'll give it to you. I'd really like you to fill out the little tan feedback form. Jeffrey's got some final comments that are very powerful and very important. If you'd be nice enough to fill out that tan feedback form, if you'd like to talk to me one-on-one, I'd love to make you an incredible offer, but I'd like to talk to you first. So please print on the feedback form, and I'd like to just say thank you for listening to some solutions that can impact people's careers, impact people's lives, because you create a business that has long-term sustainability. So thank you, and would you be nice enough to give yourself a round of applause, please? Thank you. Jeffrey?
Hi, my name's Dan Young, and I don't really have a favorite, but I have an observation. I have an analogy in business and listening to presentations where an idea or a concept, delivery is optimal, and if you want it to sink in, the analogy I like to use is marbles in a jar. You can't dump the jar over and have all the marbles come out at one time. I believe that John takes one marble out at a time, presents it, shows the color, observes it in a meaningful and understandable way. I really enjoy the way he presents an idea, understands the questions, and helps you build the answer.
My name is Hannah Toms. I've really enjoyed John's presentation today. I think the key thing here is, employees and making sure that we're properly training and developing them. All right, that was it. So let's start over. All right.
Okay, I'm ready for you.
Hello, my name is Hannah Toms. I work at Gordon Advisors, and I'm here today listening to John's presentation about employee development, and I think that's key for any organization to grow. He did a wonderful job. Thanks, John.
Hi, I'm Ken Reddig of KSSK Enterprises Incorporated. Favorite part of today's meeting, 2 things actually. I'm glad it's a faith-based, Christian-based organization, and it was awesome hearing John Lankford speak about leadership and specifically developing talent, because I know in the new venture that I'm going into, it's going to be a big focus of ours, and I recognize the need for it. And I've learned some valuable things today, and we'll implement for sure. Thanks a lot, John.
My name is John Carter, and I really enjoyed John's presentation today. I would say the most important thing that I heard is the need to develop your people proactively and give them a process to follow so they can grow in your organization. Keeping that process in place and allowing them to grow on their pace is real critical. I see firsthand people that do leave organizations when they don't have a sense of where they're going in the organization. So that was the thing that resonated the most with me.
My name is Kevin Burke, and I'm a turnaround consultant. Every time I hear John Lankford speak, I learn something. He's always touching on something that's pertinent in business today. And I don't hesitate to refer him to my clients as well.
Hi, my name is Jason Gleim, and my favorite part of John's presentation was him speaking about millennials and what that's going to impact future development of leadership.